For the first time in its history, Elite Dangerous is preparing an update that doesn't ask you to waste your time. Now that might sound like a strange thing to say about a space game like this, but if you've ever played Elite, then you know exactly what I mean. Long travel times, huge commitments, events and missions that can take hours just to reach before anything actually even happens. In 2026 then, that is changing, and it starts with a new update called Operations. Operations is built around a very simple idea. If you can dock your ship, you can play. Instead of asking players to fly for hours to reach a community goal or special event, Operations lets you drop into large-scale instant missions with friends from almost anywhere in inhabited space. That means no long preparation times, no marathon travel sessions, and if you've got half an hour, then you can actually do something meaningful and you can do it with your friends. And for a game like Elite Dangerous, that is a massive shift. So Frontier have been very open about all of this, and they recently addressed it on an interview over on Epic Games in an article written by Charlie Hall. So operations are meant to be fast access, are meant to be structured, and they're also meant to be rewarding, and not just in terms of credits, but also in terms of progression that feeds straight back into the wider game. Yes, you still use your ship, you still deploy SRVs, and you'll still fight on foot using Odyssey. But instead of being completely separate areas of the game, moving between ship and SRV and on foot, instead what happens here is that operations are designed to pull them all together into one single experience. And that's actually very unusual for Elite Dangerous, and it's a good move and a very positive change. And before I talk about more on that, please do consider subscribing if you haven't already, because it massively helps this channel, and also, well, it helps get all this information out to everyone as well, because the more people that can actually play Elite, the more improvements that Frontier are likely to make. Now, historically, Elite has always kind of leaned into how I'd phrase endurance, really. It's got a big galaxy, it's got long journeys. It's the idea that meaningful progress in the game takes a huge amount of time, a big investment in the times of your commitment to the game. And it's a philosophy, it's a concept that has shaped everything from exploration to power play to the larger community-run events. So Operations doesn't remove that side of Elite, but it does acknowledge something that's pretty important to all us players. Not every meaningful experience should require a multi-hour commitment. Whilst there's plenty of them out there, they don't all have to have that. And that's Frontier finally recognising that player time matters. And Frontier have pretty much stated that the whole structure of the Operations update has been designed to reflect that. Right, listen to this. Now, if you're thinking, okay, so that's just another mission type, well, stop right there, because these aren't just go here and shoot thing missions. They're raid-like events with multiple stages, and they're designed to feel more like a guided arc than a single task that you've pulled from the mission board. So you might start on foot at a station, launch into space, dock with the megaship, fight through its interior, and then extract, all within a single cohesive activity, one long prolonged mission. And that leads into one of the more interesting parts about this update, and we have touched on this before, but there is some new information on here, because well, that new information revolves around zero gravity, 0G, inside interior areas. So for the first time, Elite's massive NPC megaships are becoming fully explorable combat spaces. And that means that we've got these huge kilometre-long vessels that have existed in the game for many years at this point, but have always been more like, well, I guess window dressing. They're impressive to look at, but they're limited in how you can interact with them and what you can do. The new update Operation is going to turn them into entirely new environments. And what's more, there's also going to be zero gravity inside those areas. That means that parts of combat are likely to work very differently. One thing Frontier specifically cited is that grenades don't bounce, because they're not going to fall to the ground, they're not going to bounce and roll across the ground. Instead, because there's no gravity, you'll throw them and the grenades just keep on going. So yes, that means combat is going to be slightly different, or perhaps very different inside megaships to what it is on the ground. Unfortunately, Frontier didn't go into any more detail than that. Now, I would assume that players will have mag boots, so that you'll be walking around these megaship interiors, and you won't be free floating. But it would be nice, in theory, at least, if you could release the mag boots and start floating as and when you want, or even if you could walk on walls and on the ceilings, because in a 0G environment with mag boots, those should be options. Unfortunately, Frontier haven't said specifically one way or the other on that, but they have mentioned that 0G is going to have some impact on combat, at least in as far as grenades go, so hopefully, fingers crossed, that will extend to other parts of the combat as well. Okay, so it's all well and good having all of these different missions, isn't it? But you may be sitting there wondering, what does this actually mean for the game overall? What will be the reward for these operation missions? Well, Frontier have said that rewards for these missions are being designed to connect into existing gameplay, existing game systems. So that likely means ships, progression and long-term goals are all in there, rather than just becoming another isolated activity that players engage with once and then forget. And that's kind of the mistake that Frontier have made in the past. Remember CQC, a completely separate game mode that was never really integrated fully into the existing game. It seems Frontier have learned from that mistake and they're not aiming to repeat it with this new update. And ultimately, I do feel it's fair to take a bit of a step back here and look at what Operations actually means in terms of Elite Dangerous overall, because this update is not happening on its own. When you look back at all the updates over the past year or so, you can really get quite a good vivid picture of where the game seems to be heading. I've spoken about this before, but it's worth revisiting this concept in terms of what we're now aware of with Operations. So, all the way back in early 2025, Frontier released a free update called Trailblazers. That was the one that allowed us to colonize star systems. Now that wasn't a small success, it turns out that was a pretty huge success, because within months players added roughly 80,000 populated systems to what had previously been a static human-led bubble, an isolated part of humanity or an isolated part of the galaxy. So that is now massive. There's now tens of thousands of new star systems out there, and they're spread all over the place. Frontier's goal for that was, of course, player agency. The idea that the galaxy should feel like something players are actively shaping, not just living in. And the same philosophy also shows up everywhere else once you really start thinking about it. It's there with the idea of Operations, in that it allows you to jump straight into the action. And it's a new approach that's also been integrated by Frontier into the newly released ships, because each new ship is kind of designed to support specific playstyles far more deeply than they ever were in the past. And all of this has also helped with the Distant Worlds 3 expedition, which is due to launch very, very soon now. There's been some nice preparation for that as well. During the early parts of the pre-launch phases, we saw the Shoulder of Orion expedition, which happened in 2025. That was a coordinated group of players that pushed far beyond the traditional human bubble. They colonized hundreds of star systems in under a month, and that was despite some pretty rigorous challenges with how the game is built, trying to they overcome that very, very quickly. Now, it wasn't really a time-limited event, but what happened here is that the players permanently reshaped an entire region of space, and this is allowing the Distant Worlds 3, it's a player-led organization, a player-led expedition rather, to launch from a completely remote part of the galaxy, but also now it has stations fully present, because it has, at the behest of players, been colonized. So when you put all of this together, when you put together the Trailblazers update that led to colonization, the new focus on ships, and the upcoming Operations update, it really does feel like Elite Dangerous is doing something very specific here. On the one hand, it's really rewarding player time by, colonization is a huge reward for players who are willing to put the time in, but it's also, on the other hand, going out of its way to not encourage players to waste their time on things that really don't need the time to be wasted on them, and that's where the new updates are going to come into play. So yeah, Frontier seem to be really thinking about their approach for Elite Dangerous. It certainly worked with the Trailblazers update. Hopefully it will also work with the upcoming Operations update. Let me know about your thoughts and feelings in all of this in the comment section below, because as always, I'd love to hear from you. Do click on the other video you can see on the screen right here, because there's plenty more to learn about with regards to space games and upcoming releases. Thanks for watching this video all the way through. Do take care. I'll catch you next time.